The main aim of the paper is to explore how can the suit of acquired artistic aesthetic habitus that mediated his artistic activities, memories, and personal experiences be combined in the creative process of an artist. For this purpose, I represent the configuration of Dučmelić's artistic and aesthetic habitus, his insertion in the Agentina social, cultural, and artistic context to review his creative process, paying special attention to the way that personal experiences, emotional stimuli, and memories can be resignified into artistic, symbolic, and images. We work from an interdisciplinary point of view because the paper is set by 3 anthropologists and 1 visual artist. So we were trying to understand this work, Dučmelić's work, from these different points of view, from the artistic view also, but also from the anthropological perspective. So every artistic creation is constrained by social, cultural, historical, and institutional and other contextual facts experienced by the author. Art and art history, as other social phenomena, are products of complex social, political, and economic relationships. Studying art objects, artists, biographies, and the evolution of stylistic hypotheses in context of perception, competition by social and cultural factors brings them closer to long-standing anthropological concerns and interests, avoiding the view of art history as the pristine or political study of aesthetic forms. In the last years, anthropology made a shift toward new theoretical and methodological innovations where artistic and aesthetic ideas jostle each other in their passages from one cultural setting to the next. Current anthropological multifocal approaches include cross-interdisciplinary boundaries, art history, literature, artists' demand and interpretative role, and the influence from voices from previously underrepresented groups in gaining momentum. New approaches focus on art objects as products of social agency within a society, that is, the way in which they are used and interpreted in social relations make them meaningful, and also in relation to cooperative, multi-layered processes between a number of individuals, institutions, and art objects, not just as a result of a creative act by a single individual commonly denominated the artist. So, the methodology used to achieve the central goal consisted in establishing an interdisciplinary dialogue between art and anthropology. Visuality as a cultural configured practice finds a central place in the research. Focusing on research of Dučmelić images, considering them with scientific relevance, will allow us to understand the creative process, appropriation, and configuration of Dučmelić's artistic and aesthetic habitus. In addition, in this first approach, the research is focused on secondary sources such as biographies, media interviews made by other artists and critics, catalogs of his work, and literature related to his artistic production to reconstruct the cultural, artistic, and political economic context of Argentina Dučmelić's arrival, and to describe Dučmelić's creative process in Argentina. So, now I will introduce the artist. He was considered by art historians as a metaphysical surrealist artist. He was born in a city of the southern region in Eastern Croatia in 1923, where he finished high school. During that time, Croatia belonged to the Kingdom of Zdravko and province. World War II strongly marked the life of this young artist. His artistic aesthetic habitus was institutionalized in a formal academic context. His rigid academic discipline, as a critic mentioned, was acquired in Europe. He gained a rich and cosmopolitan artistic brain through different formative experiences in Rome and Madrid, where he continued briefly to study after the exile. In Madrid, he was awarded the Spanish Catholic University scholarship to study in the Real Academia de San Fernando. During this period, he also established contact with other European cultural and art epicenters of the moment in Hungary, Austria, and France. His artwork can be seen as structuration of aesthetic schemes and techniques historically situated in the vanguard moment, as well as within the social context and social relationships and migration experiences experienced by the artist. His technique and aesthetic are influenced of Spanish painters like Goya and Lucientes and Gutierrez, the Italians Giorgio de Chirico and Mario Sironi, as well as the universal painting and art history, especially of the various avant-garde movements of the 20th century. The Italian metaphysical art movement can also be perceived in his visionary work of the mind expressed with stone, grey, and steel landscapes, as I will show you in a moment. Unnaturally empty, lacking of vegetation, flooded with nostalgia and loneliness, where emotion of man is replaced with rationality of naturalistic style. Surrealism and oniric dream-like imagery stimulated his interest in dream-like, fantastic imaginary as well, especially through Max Ernst's work, and one settled in Argentina through Roberto Eisenberg's and through Solar's symbolism. Nevertheless, Dučmelić didn't consider himself as a blind follower, arguing that I found no artist to follow. Many art critics agree on this statement. For them, Dučmelić was a gifted painter with an extraordinary technique, but who didn't follow any formal art movements. The color palette that he used was characterized by the use of dark colored pigments, black, grays, blue, and ochres. The institutionalization process of a few colors that rendered in this particular and expressive style habitus was formed in Spain. He remembered that this Spanish palette with black colors, green colors, these ochres, are the natural landscape of Spain, which I always kept. Since my first oil, I have remained faithful to this palette of colors, perhaps 10 or 12, but no more. He also worked with the reduction in use of images, the search of beauty, love to express neutrality, serenity, and rationality. His art object combined diverse techniques, paintings, sculptures, and graphics. In this sense, he used different techniques and materials that could suit him in his creative process. He worked with pencil, tempera, oil painting, water-based inks, acid, essences, eggs, brushes, sharp-edged feathers, and other tools made by himself, depending on the creative process in which he was immersed. In summary, what we want to say with this is that Dučmelić was a creator who melded tools and materials and mixed heterogeneous influences together according to aesthetic and inspiration factors he had at hand, more close to his sensible properties than to formal theories and movements. We thought of this concept of bricolage to think about Dučmelić's work, because his art is a product of bricolage without fixed meaning, but continuously acquiring new meanings depending on the changing context in which it operates. Nevertheless, as stressed before, Dučmelić's personal skills, knowledge, interests, sensibilities, abilities, and decision also mediated his interpretive activities. I hope you can see the picture. Dučmelić came in a specific artistic and social context, Argentinian context. In summary, in the 19th century, Argentina was set as a nation state, and the art accompanied this creation of imaginaries. In this sense, the first ideas of art were centered in Buenos Aires, which was cultivate the Argentinians in some way. I'm describing this version. At the beginning of the 20th century, after a bunch of migrants came to Argentina, especially from Spain and Italy, not these northern Europeans that the Argentina state wanted. There was a need of to create cultural nationalism and to create. They had a reaction in this sense. It was needed a folklore, a tradition, no? And here we get these pictures from above, where the folkloric, the folklore was depicted, right? The gaucho, the rural scenes. This was what the artist interpreted that was the most Argentinian way of feeling, spending time, etc. At the same time, at the beginning of the 20s of the previous century, we got also an artistic renovation, like it happened in Europe. Argentinian artists come to Europe and learn futurism, cubism, surrealism, art concreto, and they bring this to Argentina. So, for example, we get here Emilio Bertolucci with these cubist figures, or Xus Solari, the second one, who has this kind of oniric image. This artist especially influenced Dučmelić a lot. And another characteristic painter of this moment was Verdi, with also a surrealist image picture. So in this context arrived Dučmelić together with almost 10,000 Croatians. He arrived in 1949. The Croatian migration to Argentina after the Second World War was complex and similar to other exiles of the time, like the one that Jaka described before. He remembered about the reason to come to Argentina, alluding as much as practical reason as a spiritual motivation. While I was studying in Madrid, I really knew very little about Argentina. I had already read some things about Borges, the writer, and I also had certain contacts with the country. This happened around 1948 or 49, when Borges still didn't enjoy worldwide fame. So I said to myself, if this country has such a personality, it must worth it a lot. So I came to these shores where I found a good place to work. But he arrived to Buenos Aires, but he didn't stay in Buenos Aires for health reasons, so he had to move to Mendoza. Mendoza is near in the border with Chile, and just you know, it's clothed by mountains. It's similar to the other part of Slovenia, and it's very, very stony. No? So this was important, an important influence also for the painter. Okay, and he, in Argentina, he developed a very interesting artist career. He was really recognized and had diverse exhibitions in Argentinian galleries and also on the international level. He never exhibited in Croatia until 1983, when his exhibition came to his homeland, in Zagreb and Buenos. So let's focus now into the case study world. What we want to show with this case is that the war memories about the Second World War, the Bleiburg issue, and all he experienced, this exile, was processed by Dučmelić through the art. Now, here we have a quotation. He says, my artistic work, everything I have done, cost me a great effort. image rose and ran out of the ruins to the sea. But I didn't know the sea. I have never seen the sea. For us, when we discussed these images, it was very interesting to see this because we could perceive this sadness of the author in the images. That is how he depicts. He uses recurring themes: petrified human, heroic, antagonist, and decays. He depicted a lot of women that appear immersed in these ruins, ancient geometries, and marine planets. Human figures in the middle of strange landscape, full of terrifying solitude, without sun or daylight. Abandoned houses and desert streets represent pictorial metaphors of rationality and destruction of man. Here we have another image where we connected to this idea. The present moment is painful, is a state of inflation, of great disappointment. Man is always searching and longing for protected spaces which usually are not real. This means that his search is an artificial work, the spaces are artificial. However, without a parallel illusory life, real life would be very difficult. Therefore, this may explain why there is a certain kind of poetry and a certain kind of paintings. What is also very interesting in his trajectory is that he came to finally to this kind of image, which has a color. This happened in the last 20 years of his life, where when he reoriented his creative work, he abandoned this obscure impression of the Second World War and let the light and color come to his paintings. And finally, we also thought about the positional nature of creativity through the work he did for Borges. Borges wrote a literary work called Labyrinth, and he picked the surreal and metaphysical artworks of Dučmelić, so they worked together in this book. So here we brought some images of the book, which is quite interesting for us because for anthropology it's quite difficult to think about imagination, to consider it. So we are beginning to work on this. So this is a first step towards it. In the book, these depicted words, we see tigers, mirrors, labyrinth, which for him meant immortality, infinity, and timeless. So, as a final word, art can be understood as one of the patterns in which societies and individuals that take part of them represent and symbolize their historic and social memory. Zdravko Dučmelić's work is an example of how artistic creations are constrained of social culture, historical institution, and moral contextual facts experienced by the author. Dučmelić had experienced a series of traumatic events that forced him to go to exile. Their witnesses episode commemorated his spirit and found form and expression later with the personal interpretation of languages of metaphysical and surrealist art acquired with his formation in Europe. In Mendoza, he got a period of
Yeah. So, what is the position of this artist? Is he considered as Croatian artist, Argentinian artist, or just an artist?
What do you think? In Argentina, a land that considers the people who live there citizens but from European origin, he would be considered Argentinian from a Croatian origin, from my point of view. But this Croatian origin was, in the critiques we read, was always present. He wasn't just an Argentinian from Mendoza, but he was a Croatian who lived in Argentina. But he was also Argentinian. It's part of our identity. We study identities like this. But for Croatia, he must be considered an Argentinian, no?
In Croatia or? I don't know exactly. He was born in Croatia, then he's considered Croatian, but in Argentina was, in other times it was prevalent jus solis right. To be born in the country, you obtain the nationality. And now that is changing, but I don't know, it's
difficult to understand.
It's difficult to understand it, but for Croatian community, is Croatian and is a remarkable member of the Croatian diaspora, because mostly because of being a victim of the end of the war and such issues like that.
He emphasized his Croatian.
He didn't think about nationality. He was, what I interpret is that he was searching for this universal feeling of loneliness, sadness, is what I feel.
And just a little question, a little thing. Dučmelić, at the end, in some moment of his life, he says in an interview that he changed all the heritage of war and pain and sorrow, and then changed also his style in painting.
But in the blue.
Stefan is a question.
Yes.
Maybe this can also help to understand this question, because I got the notion that Dučmelić was really linked, on the one hand, to Spanish painting. Then he was integrated in the Yugoslav environment as an artist, and then he went to Argentina. So it's kind of
he was very European in his way of painting.
So the question is really where came his art from? I mean, it's not really clear. So in Argentina, it's pretty standalone. So it's not like all the Argentinians painted similarly or something like that. Or there was also
his learning was in Europe, Rome, Italy, and Spain.
So
But this is what we wanted to say, that almost every artist from the beginning of the 20th century, the good ones, the important who had money, came to Europe to learn and brought all this knowledge to Argentina. This was very like this until they created an artistic art movement from in the 60s especially began. Like a very important, before we have this traditional movement, but it was inspired in realism, impressionism, but still with Argentine elements, the gaucho traditional images, is scenery, etc. But, I mean, this is interesting, how the Argentine artists also appropriated things from European art and brought it to Argentina and made from this something new, because it's not the same as the European art. As far as
which art we explore ethnograpically and which not, and which art corresponds to which social context or phenomenon that we try to explain.
But for me it's a difficult answer to find because you have hybrids. No?
Yeah, it's also kind of, you can see from his.
It's a good advice.
There is always an individual.
It's a good advice, your question to continue in
Yeah.
research.
Exactly, but it's interesting to think about it. But for me it's a difficult answer to give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A comment on the question.
No, I'm thinking because you can also ask yourself where does art history begins, how do you define the styles, how the agent interprets a movement. I don't know, a lot of.
But he is a part